Hello, everybody. This is Chris, CEO of Syndicate, and this is the Syndicate series. I've got with me today Greg Buzek, and I'm excited to have him on the show today. This is going to be exciting because he is truly everything retail, and we've got a lot to cover. I've asked Greg if he could to kind of put some slides up for us as he's going through his presentation, and I think it's going to flow very nicely. So, Greg, welcome to the show. Excited to have you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Listen, Greg, to kick us off, why don't you tell us, what's going on in the retail sector? I know as the president and founder of IHL, you've got a lot of experience in the retail sector. Maybe you could take a few minutes and give us what's going on today and what's driving it.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's important to share kind of what's going on with the world, because a lot of times the news, what gets shared gets slanted one way or the other. But I think it's hard to divorce what's happening in retail without talking about the pandemic, because that changed everything in retail. That changed not only the speed at which we went to digital journeys for retail, things like BOPIS or buy online, pick up in store or ship from store, or just the launch of e-commerce in certain sectors, but the inflow of money that came from pandemic aid. In Europe, in the Eurozone, they pumped about $2 trillion total throughout the entire Eurozone into the economy there. But in the United States alone, we added $5 trillion into the economy. Now, to put that in perspective, that was more than we spent on the New Deal with all the construction, as well as entirety of World War II. Just a massive amount of money into the economy. And related to that, how did that flow in? Well, that was about $2.1 trillion that went directly into retail. In 2021, we added the entire retail economy of India as growth. And then in 2022, we further added the growth of the UK's annual retail economy as growth into the US economy. And what's striking is we did that with 3 million fewer workers working in retail.
Yeah.
And that continued even through 2023. Although we didn't have any more money come in from the government for that, we still increased 3.1% for the year in total spend. So we've had this tremendous influx of cash that was not just normally from the natural occurrence of consumers, where the government money has shifted into retail, and that's been driving things. So we're seeing a natural slowdown starting to happen now. Mm-hmm. And we're being forced to do more with less.
So, Greg, when you kind of take a step back from it, when you put that kind of infusion of capital into the retail sector, it's going to change behavior pretty dramatically. Buying
Correct.
Behavior, it's going to change the way people are looking at their products, returning their products. There's a pretty significant ripple to the service component of retail in general. Maybe you can take a moment and kind of maybe elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We rushed through things like self-checkout, digital signage, electronic shelf labels. That's a perfect example. We had electronic shelf labels as a technology that was 25 years old that all of a sudden had 800% growth rate once the pandemic happened. The unions that were pushing back on the changing of prices, it became paramount for retailers to deploy this because they couldn't get enough workers to support what was going on. And so those technologies, those touchless technologies and self-checkout technologies that had been somewhat muted prior to the pandemic, all of a sudden got a free license to roll out, and then roll out into further segments, not just grocery stores.
Yeah, Greg, it's interesting. We had a guest on probably a month or so ago, and she was a retail expert, and she was talking about self-checkout and, changing people's perception of it. Sometimes it's very intimidating for those of us, maybe of my generation, to use that technology. But they said that sometimes taking a step back and having somebody there that can help really, get somebody to try something for the first time, and that once they do it 2, 3, 5 times, that comfort level sits in, and they're okay with it. And that's a shift in thinking and buying pattern. And I think it just takes a little time to get that ingrained.
Yeah, I think everything's a pendulum, and it's swung probably too far. When self-checkout was originally introduced, Kroger was very successful with it because they took their best cashiers and had them train their customers on how to use self-checkout. They gave them incentives like better pay as well as better scheduling of hours to do that. Kmart, on the other hand, just simply threw self-checkout in there and didn't train anybody.
Mm.
The challenge with the pandemic was that you had a situation where you couldn't be next to people.
Yeah.
And that was bad. So a lot of times these were just thrown in there without that training, and we got a natural pushback. But as well, as retailers began to see the financial implications and the benefits of using self-checkout, they ran them to the entire stores, which took them too far. Generally, a self-checkout transaction, a retailer, a grocery store can be profitable on about a $9 transaction, whereas a staff transaction could be close to $20 now before they make any profit on the transaction after they pay for the labor. And because of those metrics, they very much pushed the self-checkout very, very quickly to the point of some stores being all self-checkout. And then that's what started to cause these pushbacks, and as well, a huge rise in theft.
Yeah, well, Greg, you're kind of touching upon a lot of things here that are in flux. Things are changing the way people buy and retail in general. And if you look at retail, the sector, I think now more than ever, those retailers that have good command over their data, that really understand how to use that data to optimize their business processes and maximize profit. I was up on your site, and there was a number of fantastic articles and presentations up there, and you're kind of hitting on it. It's exactly what we think is happening as well. Those that are making a proper investment in good technology to automate their businesses and really create some flex in their system so they're not doing it the same way they were 20 years ago. That data can tell you a lot. And you're overlaying, other types of technologies, which I know you're keen to talk about, particularly RFID and computer visioning. I think that's where it's heading, particularly in the retail sector. Also being able to have access, or more timely access to inventory. And inventory is an area that is near and dear to me personally, because I think that's that's where your balance sheet impact can be impacted the most. If you can improve your demand planning, if you can look at your inventory as a network as opposed to what's sitting in a specific building, you've got a unique advantage. And I know some of the bigger retailers think of inventory not just what's in their facility, but what potentially could be in their brand partner facilities, what is actually in transit, what's in manufacturing. They're thinking about this very differently now, and it comes down to being able to really maximize their profit and reorder appropriately. Maybe you could take a minute on that general concept, if you would, Greg.
Yeah, right now it's everything's related to AI, and whoever has the best data wins. And I guess a little history lesson for everybody. Generally, retail tied their IT spend growth to their actual revenue growth. So if revenue went up 5%, your IT spend went up 5%. It was pegged to a certain percentage of revenue. In 2017, about the third quarter, Amazon showed a profit for the first time on their retail business alone, outside of AWS. And that was the kind of oh no moment for retail. And they realized that after, I think it was, 17, 18 years, Amazon was now generating a profit in retail alone. And they realized they were now in a situation where it was not just a retail business, it was an IT business that they needed to be in. And the smart retailers decoupled that revenue from IT spend and decided they were going to do the training and do the things they needed to get their data together, and started to spend appropriately for that to do that. The end result is something I would call a race today. It would be like you or I racing against Usain Bolt. There's a group of people that are world-class athletes, okay, that are sprinters like Usain Bolt, who have spent the time and the money and the resources. They're not only faster on the first step, they're getting faster on every substantial step. Every year, every input, every investment, they're getting further ahead because they did the hard work on the data. Whereas we would be more apropos to being those people that are the guys that didn't decouple the spend from their revenue growth. And thus they were in a situation where they were limited on that IT spend, and they didn't do those things. So when we look at what we're facing now, with everything related to inventory visibility, inventory accuracy, but more importantly and more explosively, AI, and the impacts of AI, whoever has the best data wins. And I kind of equate this race as well to looking at it. Let's say you're trying to get across from Times Square to LaGuardia Airport. Okay, there are certain people like Walmart and Amazon and Costco and Kroger and those guys that are through the tunnel all the way getting up to the toll booth to get on the Long Island Expressway to get out to LaGuardia. But the vast majority of people didn't do that hard work. They're stuck between 8th and 9th in bumper-to-bumper traffic trying to get all that stuff together. If the race is to get to LaGuardia, those guys that did the hard work are so much further ahead. And that's why it all comes down to the quality of data that you have and that data being accessed by the people that need to have it.
We're in the data and the data delivery business as a software entity. So we see this every day. Data quality, data content makes a huge difference to our customers. It also makes a huge difference to the retailers and marketplaces that they sell their products through. And if you look at that, there is a tremendous opportunity for improvement. And if you look at the sequence there, I know you're primarily focused on the retailer side of it, but data can actually initiate from their vendors or their partners. And those that are putting that connectivity in place and ensuring whether it's an AI monitor, an AI diagnostic or corrective bot, if you look at where this could go, you're seeing it just go faster and faster now. The tech is going to learn exponentially. We're training up some mapping capability right now, auto mapping capability, and we're amazed at how fast this technology can accelerate things as long as your foundational structures of your data are in order. And if you start with junk, you end with junk. If you have a good mousetrap and you're teaching AI to build a faster, better mousetrap, it learns pretty quick, and it's pretty impressive.
It is massive changes, and it's a massive force multiplier for that company. We are a firm believer in AI. We have forecast about $9.2 trillion worth of benefit for AI in the retail side of the business as well. And I think you hit on it. Data is currency. It's currency up the supply chain. Walmart's been making money from their suppliers by selling that data upstream to CPG companies for quite a while. But the CPG companies now have data that they can sell to the retailers as well. So overall, I said a $9.2 trillion worth of potential impact through the end of the decade worldwide. The biggest beneficiaries being Amazon and Walmart, who have their ducks in a row there. With Walmart in particular, we actually believe that they've got $264 billion of potential improvement by just walking down their income statement of the way that AI can be used because of the things going on through there. So $264 billion worth of benefits across different lines of businesses. And the way we quantified that is we looked at it from the perspective of what were the solutions that'll drive those benefits within the organization. And there's just massive opportunities, whether it is, if you think on the sales side of it, what's the benefit of one more item in the basket or one more transaction a month because you're leveraging AI to personalize the ad? You talked about me being an Ohio State fan. What if the ads I see show my family structure? The cup just happens to match the school colors there. The person who is in there as a spokesperson happens to be wearing the school colors or doing other things that match my profile. I'm far more likely to buy a product as a result of that, because at the end of the day, marketing is I could see myself doing that. I could see myself buying that. And so it's massive there, but it's not just there. Now we talk about cost of goods. And this is what's crazy. Walmart in particular, not only is very, very efficient in supply chain, they're now selling that skill and that software through Walmart Technologies to other retailers. It's estimated that less than 50% of the trucks on the road are 75% or more full at any one time. They're empty. In fact, most of them are 25% or less full. Well, what if you could optimize that distribution so that those trucks were always 50% or more full as they're going through there? Saves you a ton of money. Walmart is now selling that technology to other retailers as well as benefiting from itself. And then finally, where the generative AI comes in is for that knowledge worker. It's making your data available to all those people that are setting the pricing, that are writing the marketing copy, that are doing the accounts payable and things on the back end, all those things that happen at the headquarters. That's where the generative AI focus hits. And all those things amount to just huge benefits for the retailer.
Greg, you hit a lot of different different aspects of where the technology can be used for a retailer. I guess maybe my aspiration is a little smaller. So when I look at just simple things like, using AI to do language translation, using AI to do image optimization and tailoring, I think you touched upon it in your personalization example of having the cup say Buckeye on it. I love that. I think that's where things are going. I think if you look at even some of the program sports events on television, you notice that particularly in hockey, the boarding is all changing with signage because that's all digitized. That is going to happen more and more. It is already happening, and I think you're going to see very significant movements to highly personalized delivery of content to customers, and it's already happening. And I think that's going to advance very, very rapidly. I also think on the logistics side, and you touched upon that, yes, optimization, particularly logistics optimization. If you think about trucking and you think about all the components that go into moving product, everybody's moving product somewhere, almost getting different companies to cooperate a little bit to optimize their solutioning. It benefits the entire ecosystem, plus, sustainability impact is pretty dramatic. I know there's a lot of discussion about that. What is the right way to do this, and can we optimize fleets, potentially across industries or across different partnerships? And I think that is something that is going to continue to advance, because at that point, does it really give you a strategic advantage? Everybody's paying the same price to move something off port or something like that. So, I see that there's going to be great opportunities for collaboration, high degree of personalization, and you're right. There's tremendous efficiency that can be squeezed out of, obviously the larger businesses which you're focused on, but it's the same thing with the smaller guys. The smaller guys have got to remain efficient. They've got to also look at where they can use this tech and minimize their spend, because, as you said, somebody's already at the Lincoln Tunnel, and I'm clogged up over here on 8th Street. That thinking is you almost going to have to break it, because it's going to accelerate, I think, pretty dramatically over the next 5 years. And it's exciting to where it's going to go, but I think the general trends, you've hit right on it. And if you look at like the retail sector itself right now and say, okay, if you're not in the ideal position, if you're not one of the 2 or 3 or 5 top groups who are very aware that technology needs to be separated from their bottom line and be optimized, what do you tell the next wave of retailers? How do you tell them to embrace this or not? What would be your advice?
Yeah, the biggest mistake you could do is embrace it without having the data in order. There is a certain logical structure to not create a disaster. And that's what concerns me, is because some of the data is showing that the below average performing retailers are trying to do an end around now. They're trying to spend, 5 times more money one time to try to replace everything to get up to speed, but they haven't done the data work yet, and then linking these disparate systems that are in place that are holding them back. And what our research is also saying is there are big challenges in terms of availability of tech talent for those folks as well, because the arms race regarding hiring good talent for these technologies. So they try to do it all at once, and the end result can be a mess. So you can make shortcuts for certain things if you've got your data in order. But like you said, if you don't have the data in order, any shortcut is not a shortcut at all. You're just going to be caught behind the tractor trailer, so to speak, that's broken down. You're going to be stuck for a long, long time, and actually be far worse off than you might have been if you did nothing in that situation. And you hit on one thing that I wanted to talk about is this AI stuff really benefits the largest retailers, but the smallest folks can take advantage of it as well. And there is a great opportunity to get way ahead by just educating yourself, or at least finding somebody on your team that you can hire to come in and help you get up to speed on things. One of the benefits that Walmart has now is they have got 500,000 associates that have every policy and procedure in their hands. Now they have an Ask Sam function where they can pull that up and say, this is how you do this. This is how you change the printer paper. This is how you change a price. This is how you load paper into the barcode printer, all those sort of things. And it's in their native language to do that. Small retailers can do the same thing very economically by just having somebody load up their knowledge into a system that can be used by their employees. So it's not just the owner of the company that has all the knowledge. Everybody else has the benefit of having access to that knowledge as well.
That's a great point you just made. And I think sometimes it's a bit daunting when you're looking at making these changes. It's almost like a business process re-engineering project. Well, geez, where do I start this thing? And this could take me to the stratosphere. But if you look at where the tech is going and what it's good at and start to make your changes to your business, it's foundational. If I get my data right and I've got it organized properly, I can use that and weaponize it, or it becomes an asset of the firm, and I should be able to use that more effectively. In our world, which is technology, one of the questions I'm constantly monitoring in our internal meetings is what percentage of our software is being actually written by software now, where AI is generating actually code that we're using within our products. And we have to be careful for cybersecurity reasons and everything else, but we're holding that back. It's actually very, very effective. And I'm not a retailer. I'm a software engineering company. I'm trying to make my business more efficient by seeing what that thing is really good at. And a couple things where we have had some very good luck working with our customers is taking product information and changing the language across the globe very systematically. They still maintain brand control, if all within their realm. But if you look at what you might be paying for, say, translation services or for content optimization services as to an agency, this is really where this tech can start to really leverage. And it's a fraction of the price of what perhaps they're paying today, but you got to be willing to try it. You got to be willing to, step back and maybe give it a go. And that's not always easy to get people to think like that.
No, it's not. So yeah, with all this AI stuff, we're really just in the first inning of what's really coming down the pike. We've had the traditional AI, ML, that stuff's been around for years, and that's where the big benefits are happening at the moment. But what it got everybody excited was generative AI and these large language models. And we're in the first stages of that large language model, but we are quickly moving to what's called the action models. And we're going to start seeing probably within the next month, AI transition, not just being language model there, but where the AI can actually start taking actions related to things. It can watch how you program your device or your phone and then follow those steps to do those. We're seeing certain things with AI agents that are doing that already, but it's very technical and highly technical. What is going to be much more user-friendly as we see in the next month when that comes out. The stage after that, which is really powerful, is with the AI imitation models, where it simply watches the human being do it and then learns how to do it. So it watches the human being do those functions enough to where it can now replicate what that human being is doing in that function, and thus it trains itself on how to do those functions. This is where the power really starts to go up, because instead of having that tremendous amount of replication and just trial and error that you have with the traditional AI ML, this generative stuff, we're dealing with hallucinations. But as we get more into the action models and the imitation models, those hallucinations go away because we're in the context of that situation right there.
Yeah, Greg, I would agree with that 110%. And the imitation model specifically, I think it also requires a level of usage at a much lower level, meaning you need to have expert usage in a specific area, and with the AI learning off that expert usage. Once you start to do that, we're seeing it in our realm, the world of programming. We're seeing it in our realm, the world of data mapping and alignment. Once you start seeing the pattern, and the AI can learn from that pattern, it can watch you for 6, 7, not even that long, probably 3 or 4 months. Our results, our correlations on how well it's doing is incredible. I mean, we're seeing numbers that are just off the grid, 4 or 5 times better than we thought. I'm like, wow.
Our data is showing that those people that are already using the traditional AI ML in 11 categories of software, their average sales increase is 2.3 times that of others. The sales growth and the average profit growth increase is 2.5 times for 2023. And as we look at 2024, it's even higher, those that are already using that technology.
Yeah, it's certainly coming, Greg, and I think it's we're just, as you said, we're just getting going. And I think it's gonna learn fast as more and more as that knowledge set and that training expands, this stuff is going to exponentially learn.
Yeah. So that training piece becomes easier as we move forward, less compute intense there
exactly.
in that training stuff, and it moves more to the inference mode or the imitation mode that's necessary.
Well, Greg, I know this is an area that is near and dear to your heart, but maybe we could take a few minutes and talk about RFID and how important that is to the retail sector and how people are using it.
Yeah, there are two technologies right now that are more the blocking and tackling technologies. They're exciting, but they're not quite as exciting as the AI for a lot of people, but are paying incredible dividends to retailers. When we had the pandemic, what happened is we had this massive jolt to the supply chain, and that messed up inventories in a tremendous way. And two technologies that have come on that have really started to improve things are RFID and computer vision. In and of themselves, neither is a complete solution for most retail segments. They each have their weaknesses, where RFID doesn't do as well with metals or liquids in that environment with a lot of mirrors type of thing. It does extremely well with every other category of product. Computer vision can work with that situation where you've got metals, but it can't see depth there. So these technologies together are very powerful, and the financial implications are huge. When we looked at our data here from our recent study, we evaluated retailers and saw that the winners are those that grew their business 10% or more in sales in 2023. And when we looked at RFID use, we found out that those winners were 32 times more likely to be using RFID in their operation today. And they were 20 times more likely to be investing in it again in the next 12 months. The same type of thing we found in computer vision as well. 34 times more likely to be using computer vision, particularly in the area of facial recognition, as well as certain things with loss prevention. There, major impacts when it came to computer vision. So they've got different use cases. You've got the inventory use case. You've got the checkout use case with RFID. You see Zara and H&M where you can just take an entire basket full of product and just dump it into a well, and it reads all the tags at once, which is a huge improvement in self-checkout and self-checkout speed there. But it's often used just to know what's in the store and where it is in the store. Because if you're shipping products from the store, it's important to know if that product's in the dressing room or on the shelf where it's supposed to be, because you could be running around the store looking for the item that you just sold online. And that can be an issue. Where computer vision has many uses there, everything from hotspot and traffic monitoring to loss prevention at the self-checkout line or even at the back door there. But it's interesting to see that the facial recognition is the one use case that we've seen has driven the highest increase in sales and profits as a result of using that functionality of it, because they're able to identify and alert the police when somebody comes into the store that was maybe indicated that they stole from a previous location prior to that. But most of these things, like I said, computer vision is also another one of these technologies that's in the first inning. It's growing by leaps and bounds. And what I mean by that is it's not only just the speed and the efficiency, but also the accuracy of what it's doing, but the efficiency of the processing and how fast it can react. Right now, it's a very heavy compute activity. Most computer vision activities for inventory are handled through robots that are scanning the aisles there, which all that compute has to happen inside the robot itself. But now leveraging new technologies, they're able to reduce that overhead, and that compute can be moved to an edge device there that's doing many other things as well.
Well, it's an exciting time, Greg. There's a lot going on in the retail sector. There's a lot that can still happen in the next 5 years. I think foundationally, if you look at where I think you and I absolutely agree is the common set around data, starting with solid and foundational data, and then using that data and technology appropriately to optimize and business process, automate your business. And I think those themes aren't going to change anytime soon. And for those that are in the know and focused on it, they're going to be pretty successful. And those that aren't, well, there's other jobs. But Greg, I've really enjoyed having you on today. It was really fun.
My pleasure, Chris.
I learned a lot, and thank you.
Yeah,
Go
thank
Buckeyes.
You. Yeah, thank you. Go Bucks.
Greg, thanks. If you've enjoyed listening, follow me, Chris John, on LinkedIn. I'm regularly sharing insights and tips on digital transformation. This podcast is produced and presented by Syndicate. Our software products enable sales teams to sell more online faster. Please check us out at our website, syndic8.io. Thank you.